How do you know if you're stressed? What can you do if you suffer from stress? Can meditation help? You'll learn some meditation vocabulary and the basics on how to meditate in this very calm, peaceful, and relaxing episode of
Aprender Inglés con Reza y Craig.
Hi, I'm Reza.
And my name's Craig.
And with nearly 50 years of teaching between us, we'll help you improve your English and take it to the next level. How are things, Craig?
I'm feeling very relaxed, Rez. I'm feeling very peaceful. If you're a new listener to the podcast, you're very welcome. Yes, everything's great with me, Reza. How are you?
I'm feeling quite relaxed myself. I always feel a mixture of relaxation and kind of excitement at the same time when I record a podcast. I don't know how to explain it. It excites me. I like it. But at the same time, I'm like a fish in water and I kind of feel relaxed. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. It's the best part of my week recording a podcast with you. And I think because we've been podcasting since 2014, I think we're used to each other and we really appreciate our audience and we hope that we're helping you with your English. So I'm really happy to be podcasting. And we've got some fantastic feedback this week. So let's begin with our first voice message from Alejandro from Mexico.
Hello, Rez and Greg. I am Alejandro from Mexico. I don't know if you remember me, but I was the one who suggested you to speak about Mexico a long time ago. I just wanted to tell you that you are doing a great job. I'm so grateful for all those episodes. I always listen to you, and I will keep doing it. I have learned a lot. I have learned how to speak better. I have learned to use the past tense in the verbs. Thank you very much, and see you later.
Of course we remember you, Alejandro. Thank you for getting in touch again and sending us another message. And you have learned a lot of things. One thing is that you have learned to correctly use the present perfect. So fantastic. Well done. Your tenses were very, very good and your message very, very clear. Any comments?
I would just repeat exactly what Craig said. Thanks very much, Alejandro, for your very, very clear and very nice message. And you clearly have learned tenses correctly. Well done.
Just one small thing we'd like to correct. You said suggest you. Remember to use to after suggest. You suggest to someone. You can suggest something to someone. It's better to say, I would like to suggest to you, or I suggested to you to speak about Mexico, or I suggested that you speak about Mexico. We have another message from another Alejandro, but this time from Colombia.
Hi guys, my name is Alejandro. Is my second voice message. I'm trying to do better. I'm from Medellin, Colombia. It's the Paisa land, the earth of arepa and beans. I really enjoy your work, and I feel so happy right now when you're trying to explain the English language in a good way and with an amazing way to transmit your ideas. Thank you for help us. And I'm trying to ask you about what chapters talk about present perfect, past perfect, and present perfect continuous. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Alejandro, or Alejo, as you said. That's your nickname, Alejo. And we really appreciate you sending in your message. Thanks very, very much. One thing I'd like to mention, I think you said at the beginning, the earth of arepa and beans. Better to say the land. We'd say the land of beans and arepa. So try to remember that we say land and not earth, although both is tierra in Spanish.
Alejo, thank you very much for your message. And just hearing a Colombian talk about beans and arepa has made me hungry now.
Yeah, me too.
I'm a big fan of arepa and beans. And every time I get a chance to go to a Colombian restaurant here in Spain, I do. And I'm always satisfied with the interesting dishes you have there. You've got a great culinary tradition in Colombia. So I envy whatever you're having for your lunch, Alejo.
And thank you for your compliments about the podcast. You actually said thank you for help us. Better to use the gerund because for is a preposition. And after prepositions, we use the gerund, the ing form of the verb. So thank you for helping us is better. And we have spoken about the present perfect before, and we don't say chapters. Chapters is more for books. We'd say episodes, so podcast episodes. If you go to 319, we spoke about the present perfect. Also in 287, and also in number 18. So inglespodcast.com/319, 287 or 18. And we compared the past perfect and past perfect continuous tenses with our friend Mike Harding back in episode 91. That's inglespodcast.com/91. So I suggest you listen to those episodes. If you have any questions or doubts, get in touch again, Alejo. And if you ask specific questions, we'll be happy to help you with any doubts you have.
Next, we've got a voice message from Angeles, who is Spanish. And I think she's in Canada at the moment, but she's going to move to another part of Canada, if I understand her message correctly. She's going to move to Vancouver Island.
Hello, Rez and Craig. My name is Angeles. I'm from Spain, but currently living in Canada. I moved here a few days ago, and these days I'm doing my 14 days mandatory quarantine. I listen to your podcast every day, and it helps me a lot with my listening. At the end of this month, I'm moving to Vancouver Island, where I'm going to work from now on. Do you know this area? Have you been here before? Can you tell me something about this beautiful island? Thank you. Keep doing your useful podcast. Bye.
Well, good luck, Angeles, with the move over to Vancouver Island. We did a full episode about Canada. That was episode 224. You might be interested to listen to that. Go to inglespodcast.com/224 to find out some information about Canada in general. And what might be useful for you in that part of the world is some vocabulary connected to winter weather. Words like slush and frost and icicle and wind chill factor and below zero that you might be experiencing there with temperature. So go to inglespodcast.com/187 and that will help you be able to speak very fluently about the weather with people on Vancouver Island.
Yes, when I heard that you were moving to Vancouver, Angeles, I was interested because I had the impression that Vancouver Island was quite different to the rest of Canada, and the fact that it was an island technically in the Pacific Ocean, that it was quite warm and a mild climate. I wasn't exactly right. I did some research. I went to a website all about Vancouver Island. I've included it in the show notes if anybody's interested. And yes, I was right in that Vancouver Island does have the mildest climate in all of Canada.
Really? I didn't know that. So maybe she won't be experiencing severe winter weather.
Not severe, but it's going to get below zero, and that's the mildest place in Canada. Here's the thing, I mean, I didn't realize, but everywhere in Canada is really cold in the winter. Nowhere escapes. I thought that maybe in Vancouver Island it would be a bit milder, but it's not much. And in summer, it doesn't get much above 25 degrees, so it doesn't get really hot either. So in a way, you're lucky because it's going to be cold, but not half as cold as some other parts of Canada in the winter.
It's a bit like living in the south of Scotland.
Yeah, rather than the north. Yeah.
Next, we have a voice message from Alba from Barcelona.
Hello, Reza and Greg. This is Alba from Barcelona. How is it going, guys? I hope everything is good with you despite this coronavirus crisis and you and your families are okay. So, I don't know if you remember me. I sent you a message when I was living in Dubai and I really enjoyed your podcast. So, thank you guys because everything you said was so true. Yeah, I came back in Spain before this crisis started, so I'm happy to be close from my family and friends again. And yeah, but I'm feeling like everybody is kind of anxious and the stress and anxiety has increased. So I don't know if you do some meditation or some relaxation, but if you could talk about it, I think nowadays we have to increase that. So thank you guys. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you very much, Alba, for your message. Of course, we remember you and your connection with Dubai very well. Thanks very much for a beautiful message, very clear. I especially loved your pronunciation. And we're going to speak a little about stress in a minute, but a different kind of stress, language stress, word stress, you demonstrated very well in your message when you said it was so true. That stress, that emphasis on so really got the message across. Everything you said was so true. So very good pronunciation, Alba.
Yes, Alba, good to hear from you again. I remember your message from before. Yep, I remember you saying that you were going to Dubai. Perhaps our episode about winter weather is not so useful for Dubai.
We should do one on summer weather.
The summer weather and sun and deserts and things. Your message was really good. Thanks. However, there was a couple of little things that I picked up on, tiny little things that we could talk about to improve your message. You said that you came back in Spain. Well, you move to a place. So you came back to Spain. And another preposition, you said close from my family and friends. It's close to. The preposition with close is to. Close to my family.
And be careful with the pronunciation of anxiety, Alba. Anxiety has 4 syllables and you need to stress the second syllable. Anxiety. Anxiety. So people suffer from stress and anxiety.
So your question was, how do we deal with stress? Good question.
Yeah.
Good question. You got us thinking about that.
Especially these days with the coronavirus pandemic. We're recording this in November 2020 and the numbers are going up. So some people might be feeling even more stressed than usual.
Yes, and I imagine some people are under permanent stress. For example, doctors and nurses, people working on the front line who are inundated, flooded with lots of work to do as a result of this pandemic. They probably are under constant stress, and I wonder how they deal with it.
So let's look at some ways that you can cope or deal with stress, or we could say handle. How are you handling the stressful situation that we're all in at the moment? And before we give you some advice, we do want to stress, we want to emphasize that we're not doctors or psychologists or experts in the area of dealing with stress, but we do have some advice that we hope will be useful for you and some vocabulary that will hopefully improve your English.
Well, let's start off with a theory about handling stress, which is quite popular. It's the theory of the 4 A's. The 4 A's, letter A. The 4 A's, they are avoid, alter, adapt, and accept. They are the 4 A's. So, Craig, what exactly do we mean by these 4 A's?
Well, if you avoid something, then you don't do it. You try to do something that does not put you in the position of being stressed. For example, I feel a little stressed here in Valencia sometimes travelling by bus. So I've decided to buy a bicycle. So I'm avoiding using the bus and I'm travelling by bicycle. That's the idea. So I'm avoiding the situation of using the bus. So in Spanish, you'd say evitar, for avoid. I'm avoiding a stressful situation by choosing a different option. So that's the first A, to avoid being in a situation that's stressful.
What is it about the bus that makes you feel stressed?
Well, sometimes it's okay, but when it's really crowded and there are lots of people in the bus and all the windows are closed, if someone has coronavirus in the bus, then if you're traveling for, let's say, 30 minutes, that's 30 minutes that you're closed in a small space with lots of people, and maybe the virus could be passed even though people are wearing masks. So I think that could be a stressful situation for some people, to be in a crowded place, you can't move, you can't go anywhere, and you're just sitting in a bus. Do you feel the same way?
I don't like it. I feel a bit uncomfortable when there's lots of people on the bus, yeah.
Do you feel stressed?
Not stressed, no. Stress is probably an exaggeration, but I do feel anxious. I feel anxious. I wouldn't say stressed, but I'm anxious not to get too close to anybody's mouth or nose, their face, where potentially coronavirus infected air could be breathed in my direction, yeah? And I try to touch whatever is on the bus the minimum possible. So obviously you have to hold on or you'll fall over in a bus. So you've got to hold on to certain bars and poles. But I just try and touch the minimum necessary. Yeah, I am kind of conscious of that. And then when I get off the bus, I wash or disinfect my hands as quickly as I can.
But you're not thinking of avoiding that situation by travelling in a different way?
No, but that brings me to the next A, because for me, it's difficult to avoid catching the bus because I don't have access to a car. So I really need to get the bus. So if I can't avoid getting the bus, that brings me to the next A, which is alter. Alter means you try to alter the situation when the stress arises. So I don't like being on a crowded bus. So what do? Well, if I've got plenty of time and a crowded bus stops, I don't take that bus. I wait for the next one to come, because we're lucky in Valencia. We have electronic signs in some of the bus stops which tell you when the next bus is due. So I see there's going to be another one in a minute. I think, well, maybe there'll be fewer people on that. And that's usually true because everybody's got on the crowded bus. So I just wait a minute or two and get the next bus. So there'll be not so many people on it. So I've altered the stressful situation. I'm still going to have to get a bus. Can't avoid that. But I've made it a bit more favourable for me now. There'll be not so many people on that second bus.
So this use of alter here is changing the situation. You're changing it to make it less stressful. I get personally stressed when I think I'm going to be late for an appointment. So I alter or change that situation by leaving earlier. So I leave in plenty of time, and altering that takes away the stress because I know I have a lot of time. If there's a problem, I'll be okay, and that stops me from getting stressed.
The next A we said was adapt. What do we mean by that? Well, if you just can't remove the thing or the action, for example, getting on a bus full of people, or the person, could be a person who's causing you stress. If something's stressing you out and you can't remove them, you've got to be in there or it's present, then adapt your behavior to cope with the situation.
What does cope mean?
To cope is the same as to manage, to handle, to cope with something. For example, let's change our example to a person. Imagine there's a particular person who always makes you feel stressed. It's the sort of person who always shouts, they're never happy, they complain, they seem to do nothing but bring problems. It's a person that just causes stress to you, but you're obliged to spend time with that person because they're a workmate, for example. Then adapt your behavior. Speak about things where you know it's very difficult for them to complain, or say nice things to them, or talk to them about trivial things. You know they like, for example, Real Madrid Football Club. You say, hey, didn't Real Madrid play really well the other day? You don't care about Real Madrid, but if you get him talking about Real Madrid, he might be positive and he might be unstressed for a while. But you know, if you talk about work, he's going to say, oh, the boss said this, that, and the other. We got to do this, and I'm really unhappy. And don't you think this is impossible? And isn't this terrible? So don't talk about work. Talk about, for example, his favorite football club. So that's adapting to the situation. You can't avoid him. You can't change this person. He is the way he is. But you can adapt your behavior to cope with the situation.
And I think also part of adapting is preparing well for something. For example, I sometimes get nervous and anxious before a new class when there are new students. So instead of beginning the lesson immediately when the students come into the class, I like to break the ice, ask some questions, try to get comfortable with them and they get comfortable with me. So I've prepared something before the class. And that's very true for you with job interviews, if you're giving a presentation, any social situation that makes you stressed or anxious. If you prepare before, that very often relaxes you and makes you less stressed when you're actually doing the job interview or doing the presentation. So prepare, and that will help you also with stress.
The last A is accept. What do we mean by that? Well, just accept the fact that some stressful situations. By the way, I just want to clarify the difference between stressed and stressful. A person feels stressed, that's ed at the end, stressed or stressed out. You can add the preposition out. A person feels stressed out because the situation is stressful. Okay, so stressful causes stress. Stressed feels the stress. Okay, so just accept that some stressful situations are unavoidable and just do what you can to get through them. You just know that you have to do it to get to wherever you're going. I'm going to give you an example, and I'm probably going to get into big trouble, but it'll explain very clearly what I mean. Giving birth. Now, I know it's a situation that I'm never going to be in. I never will have to go through that stress as a woman. Who knows? I might be a father someday. They suffer their own stress in a way, but very little compared to the woman giving birth. I accept that. So imagine you are going to give birth. Well, think of the other three. Avoid, alter, adapt. You want to have a baby? You really want to have a baby? You can't avoid. You have to give birth. Alter? What can you alter anything? Well, yeah, you can make sure that you're not too overweight, that you do all the exercises beforehand to get ready. Adapt. Realize that you're going to give birth. You're not going to like this. You're going to be a strange environment.
So your life will change forever.
Your life will change, and you just have to get used to it and accept that it's going to hurt. There's never been a woman in history that I've heard of who has given a completely pain-free birth. It's going to hurt, but you know it. It's going to hurt. So prepare yourself in advance. Accept it. This is going to hurt. But think of what you're getting afterwards. You're getting a lovely baby. So you just have to accept that there's going to be a stressful situation, going to hurt. You're not going to like it, but you have to go through it.
I have an example also, but maybe not as dramatic as Reza's. Imagine you have an appointment, and I mentioned before that I get stressed or stressed out when I think I might be late, so I usually leave in plenty of time. Imagine you leave in time for your appointment and you get stuck in traffic. Maybe you're driving or you're on a bus or you're in a taxi and you know now that you're going to be late and the traffic is not moving. Well, you can become stressed or you can accept the situation because there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. If you're flying somewhere and your flight gets cancelled, there's nothing you can do about it. So accepting these situations helps you to reduce the stress, especially when you have no personal control over what's happening.
I think your example, Craig, is a good kind of summary of everything that we've said. Basically, you can't be a perfectionist all the time. Things will go wrong. Sometimes they're going to be your fault. But sometimes, like in a traffic jam, it isn't your fault. But it doesn't really matter. If it's gone wrong, it's gone wrong. And as long as some things go right in your life, it's not the end of the world. So you can't be a perfectionist every day of your life. Accept that, and your life will be a lot more stress-free. Craig, there is another more specific approach. You could try meditation.
Have you tried meditation?
Not really. Not really seriously. I kind of have tried to initiate, but I was very young and I didn't have the patience to follow it through. What about you? Have you done it?
I have. I don't meditate much these days for various reasons, but in the past I've taken courses, so I'd like to pass on what I learned in those courses, and hopefully that will help you if you're suffering from maybe insomnia, if you're having problems sleeping, or just relaxing and de-stressing. Maybe this will help. But let's look at some vocabulary that we will need first. There are different kinds of meditation, and the meditation I learned about was mindfulness meditation, being mindful. Being mindful means being aware of the present moment. And aware, you could say in Spanish, consciente, and we have a similar word in English, conscious, being conscious of the present situation or being aware of. What other words do we need to know, Reza?
Well, for meditation, I understand that it's very important to focus on your breath or on your breathing. Clear your mind and just breathe in or inhale, the air coming in, and breathe out, exhale. I think that's a fundamental step in meditation. Am I right?
Yeah, that's basically it. Notice the way Reza pronounced focus. That's sometimes mispronounced by Spanish speakers. The first vowel sound is O, like go or show or know. Focus. And the difference between breath and breathe, which has a longer vowel sound, E. So breathe is the verb, we're breathing, and breath is the noun, so you take a breath. Another word we need to know is wander, W-A-N-D-E-R, to wander. And when you wander around a city, you just walk in no particular direction. There's no destination specifically, you're just walking around to wander. And this we speak about in meditation when the mind wanders, because sometimes the mind goes to places and you think of things that you maybe don't want to, and it seems to be automatic. Suddenly you think about your dentist appointment tomorrow or something you said to your partner yesterday. So your mind does wander when you meditate. So that's an important word to know. So I've got 5 basic steps to follow if you want to practice this to remove your stress. The first thing is just find a quiet and comfortable place to sit. Now, for some of you, that might not be possible to find a perfectly quiet place, but as quiet as possible. Some people sit cross-legged on the floor. So you cross your legs and sit perhaps on a cushion, but it's perfectly fine to sit in a chair if you can't sit comfortably on the floor, and close your eyes. So you're sitting comfortably, your body's relaxed, your eyes are closed, and it's a good idea to set a time limit. So that's number 2. How long are you going to meditate for? You could start with 5 minutes for the first few days. And number 3, concentrate on your breath. As Reza said before, there are 2 ways you could do this. I personally focus on the air coming out of my nose, because if you close your eyes and you breathe in and breathe out, you can feel a little bit of wind or breath on the top of your lip. And as you breathe out, you feel it, and then you breathe in and then you breathe out. That's one method, or you can focus on your abdomen, which is the area of your stomach that rises and falls. So you could focus on the rising and falling of your abdomen. Now, when you do this, as I said before, your mind sometimes wanders. You start thinking about other things. Don't worry, that's normal. Don't judge your thoughts. Don't decide if they're good or bad. Just notice, accept that you're thinking of something else, and bring your attention back to your breathing. Maybe you feel an itch. To itch is picar. Maybe you want to scratch it, rascar. That's quite normal. You could ignore it, or just scratch it quickly and go back to focusing on your breath. So when your mind wanders, bring it back gently to your breathing and try to focus on your breathing. Those are the most important steps. You need to practice every day. You need to practice regularly, and it will get easier the more you practice. There's no succeeding or failing. You're just trying to relax, focus on your breath, clear your mind, and remove the stress. Reza, what other ways can you think of dealing with stress apart from the 4 A's and meditation?
Well, I think meditation is probably the best way. It's a pity that up to now I haven't had the patience to learn how to do it properly, but there are more traditional, easier ways, lazier ways, and I don't want to be controversial. Heaven forbid, I wouldn't do that. But have a drink.
Alcohol.
Yeah. Now, I'm not suggesting that anybody becomes an alcoholic. I'm not suggesting that every single time you have a problem, go for the bottle, have a drink. No, but quite often at night, around about dinner time or after, I'm feeling a bit stressed and I have to get up early in the morning, but I'm thinking about what I have to do the next day. It's keeping me up. I could take a sleeping pill, or I could have a glass of wine with my dinner. And I prefer the second option, a glass of wine with my dinner, and I find that it quite often relieves my stress. Here's the problem though. If you have 3 or 4 or 5 or more glasses of wine, it only creates another type of stress through drunkenness. So I have the odd drink. What do you think? Is that such a bad thing to have the odd drink? Odd, ODD, can mean from time to time, the odd drink.
I don't think it's a necessarily bad idea if it's taken in moderation and if it doesn't become a habit, because the danger is when you feel a little stressed, you look for the wine or you look for the whiskey or you look for the beer. You make that connection in your brain between alcohol relieving stress that could lead to complications and problems, and it could be negative. But I'm interested, is that the way you tend to deal with stress? And if it is, how do you know when you're feeling stressed? Are there any signs?
Oh, it's only if I have one particular theme on my mind.
So you've had a stressful day.
Could be for that reason, but it's more to do that I want to go to sleep, but I don't feel sleepy. And I'm a bit stressed about that. And the wine makes me feel sleepy. Probably better to take something natural. Probably better to take some kind of herbal tea like valeriana or something like that, or chamomile. And sometimes I do. But hey, sometimes a glass of wine works as well. Just to make me feel a bit sleepy, to get the stress out of my mind and make me sleep so it's at night. You'll be glad to hear, listeners, I don't normally drink in the middle of the day. But at night, occasionally, not every day of my life, sometimes, I have a drink to just help me relax and make me feel sleepy.
I sometimes get stressed when I know I have to wake up early the following day for an appointment or a class. Do you get stressed when you know you have to wake up at a particular time?
Yeah, that's the main thing. If it's very early and I need to go to sleep, that's the time, and quite often I'll have that glass of wine to make me sleepy. It's probably not ideal, but it's better than always taking a sleeping pill, in my opinion, every time you feel you really want to sleep. A bit more natural. Although probably chamomile tea or something like that is the best option, I suppose.
Well, there are other options. You could do exercise. I know that exercise really helps with stress. If you go for a run or you do a physical workout, that can really help you sleep and remove the stress.
Yes, but you shouldn't do exercise late at night. It does help you sleep. If you do it early in the day, then you'll sleep well that night, but you shouldn't do it just before you go to bed.
True, because of the endorphins and the adrenaline pumping around your body. Music helps to relax some people. Puts on some nice soft music, maybe some classical music. That could help you.
Yeah, a thing I often do.
There's another useful word I just thought of, to unwind. To unwind, because years ago we had watches that didn't have batteries and we had to wind up the watch or wind up a clock. And to unwind is the opposite. So to unwind means to relax, to listen to music, have a glass of wine and just de-stress, just unwind at the end of the day.
But Craig, do you think that stress can ever be useful or indeed necessary?
There's a very basic stress that comes from the days when we lived in caves and we had to run away from wild animals. It's called fight or flight. Flight is to run away and fight is to stand where you are and fight the animal. So sometimes stress can be a good indication of danger. And you feel stressed because there's danger around you and you need to react and do something maybe physical because of the danger. So it can be positive. And also I think before giving presentations, before a job interview, before something important in your life, to be a little stressed is good because your mind is more awake and you're more focused on the important thing that's going to happen. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's research into that whenever you're stressed, it causes your body to release adrenaline. And one of the benefits of adrenaline is that it can focus your mind on the very basics. If you need to quickly get out of a difficult situation, adrenaline can be a good thing. It can make you think on your feet, which means get quick solutions for problems.
Yes, immediate reaction. If you're interested to read more or even practice meditation, there are some links in the show notes that will help you. Go to inglespodcast.com/339. I've linked to the method of meditation that I learned when I did the course. It's called Vipassana, and I'll link to the English site in the show notes. And some people like to use an app on their phone to help them meditate. And there are two apps that I'd recommend I know are very popular for people who are starting to meditate. One's called Headspace and the other app is called Calm, C-A-L-M. And both of those apps are guided meditation. So you follow people with soft music and then they show you how to meditate. So if you'd prefer to use an app, there are recommendations in the show notes.
We talked earlier about the 4 A's: avoid, alter, adapt, accept for handling stress. There's a very good website which explains that very well. It's called Help Guide. So if you just Google helpguide.org, you'll find it, or there's a link in the show notes. And also, Craig found a good YouTube clip about guided meditation. Again, the link is in the show notes. So just go to Inglés Podcast, episode 339, inglespodcast.com/339.
So please be aware of your stress. Please don't be stressed. We know this is a very stressful time for many people during this coronavirus pandemic in 2020. And sadly, some people are losing their jobs and they can get very stressed. If you feel you need to scream or shout or complain or rant, then do it to us. We're more than happy to listen to your problems. Just let us know by voice message. Go to speakpipe.com, speakpipe.com/Inglespodcast. Reza, what about emails?
If you prefer to write to Craig@inglespodcast.com or belfastreza@gmail.com.
And we remind you that on the Mansion Inglés store, you can find paid courses that will help you with your English. Go to store.mansioningles.net.
As always, we'd like to thank our sponsors who support this podcast by donating money via Patreon. If you're interested, go to Patreon, that's Patreon, patreon.com/Inglespodcast. And you might be interested in becoming a new Patreon supporter. What those people do is they donate money. The quantity is up to you, but it has to be a minimum of $1 per month. It's not the minimum we put, it's the minimum that Patreon put. $1 per month plus VAT, the tax. So it ends up at about $1.21. But if you do that, then you'll get instant access to recent audio transcriptions. So if you're interested, go to patreon.com/Inglespodcast. We have plenty of sponsors and we'd like to mention all of them, but we don't have time. But we do have time to mention our most recent sponsors.
Yes, they are Marco Antonio Solis Garcia, thank you. Jose Moranci, I think it's Moranci. I apologize, Jose, if I've mispronounced your name. Perez Alberto, or maybe Alberto Perez. Alejandra Castro, Cristian, thank you. And also Miguel Angel Cabos Gil. And thanks to Francisco Gonzalez, our latest sponsor. On next week's episode, we're speaking about names. What's in a name? So until next week, thank you for listening this week. My name's Mr. Craig Wieland, and goodbye.
And my name's Reza, and take it easy.
See you next week. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye. The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later. Music also by Jason Shaw from audionautics.com. The track was Autumn Sunset. Creative Commons License 4.0.